March report of this year, TIGTA gave no indication there would be problems with the IRS's implementation of reporting requirements. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So does that include Section 6055 that requires insurers to report about the coverage that they provide?
There are several information requirements from insurers, employers, from the exchange itself on a monthly and annual basis. So all of that information will flow to the Internal Revenue Service and has to be processed, maintained, and kept.
But you had no issues with that?
That is still not really done until 2014 will that data start to flow to the IRS.
Okay, but does this include Section 6056 that requires employers to provide information on the health insurance they provide? So
we're very concerned about that with the recent change and the recent
No, but prior to that, we're talking about your March report. I mean, because you're there to make sure that the IRS is moving along in the path here.
That's correct.
Right. And so in your March report, you said they didn't have any issues with this process of getting that information, right?
That was the information that they were collecting for the income and family size verification and the premium tax, and the overall plan that they had in place looked good.
Looked good, okay. So, when we see the President announce this change, right, on the employer mandate, and then we see this other movement in terms of reporting requirements, right, which you have the business mandate, then the reporting requirements, the President, and through this administrative procedure here, they've said, well, we're just not really going to verify very much, right? But is there a basis in practice, right, saying that they really don't have that capacity? I mean, according to TIGTA.
Yeah, in accordance with what we reviewed and the application that we looked at the IRS, and our understanding as of today is the IRS will continue to provide to the exchanges through the HHS hub the income and family size information. Now, we did not see in our review that there was a major change in the IRS need or requirement to provide that information if it's available.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the verification process to ensure that people are complying with it, right?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, though, that we understand that the IRS information is only one set of information that the exchange will use in looking at and determining what the final income and family size data should be.
So let's run a scenario here, okay? So, in a state that doesn't expand Medicaid, for instance, North Carolina being one, and I represent a district in North Carolina, a man who earns $15,000, we're just going to walk through this scenario so people have an idea, would be eligible for a $3,400 subsidy if his employer does not extend an offer of affordable coverage to him or her, for instance. And so in 2014, with the federal government, would they be able to verify whether this individual had an offer of affordable coverage at work?
I assume the HHS or the exchange at the state level would be in a position.
We don't have an exchange at the state level.
Then the federal exchange would have to be doing that. And they would ask for information from the Internal Revenue Service as well as other locations. Okay.
So if, to Ms. Tavener, if an individual fails to report that he has an offer of affordable employer-sponsored insurance, right, will he receive a subsidy of that $3,400?
When an individual does do the self-attestation, they would verify whether or not they had employer-sponsored insurance.
Right. So they're going to say, hey, here's the deal. Didn't get it. Give me $3,400 subsidy. So if I'm verifying for myself, right?
If you're verifying for yourself and you say that it's available and you didn't get it, you would not be eligible for the tax credit. And a reminder.
Right, but who's going to say I'm not eligible for free stuff?
So I'll remind you that you sign when you complete the application that this is under law perjury, okay? So there are consequences to an individual who's not truthful on their application.
So what kind of enforcement are you going to have on that truthfulness?
Obviously, we would follow law.
Right, but you have to have people to execute the following of the law. Are you going to ring them up and say, hey, by the way, were you honest on this self-attestation?
Well, we will look at ways to verify.
Well, you'll look at it. Okay, we're talking about this going into effect this fall. We want something a little more than a look for. What is your process to verify that what they said was in fact true?
So there are a couple of ways. Obviously, we will verify first with the IRS, with SSA information that's available. If we're not able to get everything we need there, we will work with private commercial products, such as Equifax.
So Equifax would have knowledge on whether an employee of my brother's business was offered a health insurance plan that was commensurate with the requirement under federal law. Equifax would have that knowledge?
We are looking at a process, and I'll be happy to get back to you with those details. So I need to walk you through the process, and I'm happy.
But I would think you would sort of think this through with this big announcement that we're going to waive the employer mandate.
We are thinking it through.
But you leave the individual mandate. So people are required under compulsion of law, right, which apparently you haven't thought about the enforcement of that law, which is sort of interesting, and maybe sort of liberating for some people, by the way. That you still have it on the law, but you don't have any enforcement mechanism.
And I'm happy to get back with you with that process.
Well, I would hope you would get back with us, and I hope you would think more deeply about this when you testify to Congress about something this important, that you would have taken a little bit of time to think through that verification process and that enforcement mechanism that you have enormous authority, as well as the IRS, to enforce it. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the indulgence of time, and I didn't get to the fullness of the questions I had, but this is outrageous, the non-answer that I was given, and I appreciate the Chairman's work on this.
Ms. Tammer, about how much time do you think, to be able to come back on his question?
Yes, just a few days.
A few days, great. Thank you for that. Mrs. Black.